right, time for another Monday mindset. This time we are hopping right into retreat insights. Now, why would I take the time to debrief you who were not there for this Motivation Mastery Weekend retreat with the other big-hearted, like-minded parents who are raising resilient children, filling up their toolboxes one tool at a time? It's because I think it's really valuable for you to get a sense, even if you weren't able to attend or haven't yet kind of jumped into this kind of mentorship, what it's like to be not only synced up with other parents moving forward on goals, which is a rare thing these days. We have teacher training programs, we have onboarding programs for everything under the sun, but parent mentorship spaces where you're really synced in with other parents going on a journey tends to end with moms groups around age 2 years old for the kids. So it's like expecting mothers of infants, mothers of early toddlers, but then suddenly it's like schools are supposed to take over, and some of them have the bandwidth to create, parent engagement programs that are really robust, but most don't. And so what I found is that parents need support, especially when the kids are still young and there's still a chance to establish really healthy habits. Now, you can go do it DIY, absolutely, as much as you want. Read books, listen to podcasts. I believe in all of that. And if you're trying things and you're still stuck and you're not finding that the things you're trying from these resources are really making a dent in what feels like an ongoing struggle, that's what this kind of thing is for. Come to these talks, find a mentor, possibly even to hop into a program like the one that I've designed for parents. That is a year-long experience, traveling together with a cohort, similar to a mother's group, but you have a mentor that is looking at what are all the tools you need to build up resilience in your family, also have smooth routines, be able to handle like conflicts in a healthy way, establish boundaries, get your kids to listen to, limits and expectations in a way that's really respectful and empowering. If any of this is appealing, now is the time. I just need to put a really strong message in this right in the beginning of this talk. And the reason I say now is the time is because if you already say yes, if you're already identifying with this, then the problem's already happening and you're already in it. And it's happening probably pretty consistently. And it doesn't have to be that way. And you don't have to do this alone. If you have not yet taken me up on a free 30-minute consult parent strategy session, I put the link in the chat. It's also in the notes of this video for those of you who are listening on Facebook or YouTube. And if you're here on Zoom, I also put it in there. Hop on my calendar. It's time to just we'll have you take a parenting strengths quiz. We'll identify your strengths and challenges. We'll put together a learning plan for you, and we'll give you 1 or 2 or 3 strategies you can try right away. I've been hearing back from folks. I went and tried it and it worked right away. I wasn't sure which one would work. So I tried all 3, and the 2 of the 3 really helpful. And I customized these sessions just for you, what tools I think out of the toolbox would be most helpful right now. And that's how I coach. And that's what people are experiencing in my year-long program for 1, 2, 3, or now we have folks in their 4th year. Not because they didn't learn enough, but because it's been so valuable and supportive in their lives. So why do I share this retreat with you? I want you to have a picture and a sense of what it might be like to be in this, but also give you a few tips today that you can bring in and really help boost motivation in your household. Now, when we think of low motivation, often we think of a few different things. We think of kids sitting and stalling and not doing something that they should be doing, whether that's homework or a chore or some kind of transition from one thing to another. It's time to go, and they're not motivated, right? And we might find ourselves doing things like bribing them, threatening them, repeating ourselves, or giving up and doing it for them. And then we might end up feeling defeated, frustrated, angry, sad that your kid is like not really living up to their potential, right? Like that they can do it, but they're not doing it. Maybe confused, maybe puzzled, curious, wondering why this is happening. This is a common experience, and why I created a 3-day retreat just focusing on helping parents fill up their motivation toolbox. And also before that, why I did my master's, where I read over 100 motivation research studies to help myself understand what is this phenomenon that I'm seeing in the classrooms and in homes where kids are waiting for external cues or waiting for external direction or waiting for external pressures to get motivated rather than being motivated from within. And that motivation will show up and disappear. And it's a bit of a mystery, but it's actually not an unsolvable one. That's the good news. So insights from a motivation retreat, I'm going to be doing 2 things. I'll be sharing specific highlights that captured that are word for word what folks have said after studying this intrinsic motivation, this motivation from within. Like, how do we stoke up the fires of motivation so that they run and they kind of like burn on their own in our children and in ourselves? So direct quotes from like their key insights that they took away from the 3-day experience. And they'll also share a few videos of folks actually telling you, so you can see their faces and their words, and you can hear their story and maybe connect to something differently. And I think stories are one of the most powerful ways to learn. By the way, when you're teaching kids things, stories are great. It puts things into context. It makes it more meaningful. They can picture it and visualize it. It makes all the difference. So those are the 2 modes I'll be kind of annotating and giving you my editorial comments along the way. All right, you ready? I'm excited. All right, so first I'm going to put up a slide that I'm going to highlight a few things off of. So you have to imagine that we have about 30 to 40 people, about 30 families, all attending this event. We're getting on Zoom every day, 3 times a day, on Friday, a Saturday, and then twice on a Sunday. And at the end, we collect like some of the top highlights and pull them all together from these interactive slides. So these were written, typed in by the participants, and then we put them up on a slide. So here's just a peek of that. From my newsletter, this is something you saw probably in the email. And so what stands out here to you? I'll give you like a moment, just look at it, okay? And the reason I'm asking you what stands out to you is that often we have some good intuition around what could be the thing that could drive things forward, move things forward, and get you unstuck in your family. Real people, real names here. These are the folks who attended either as a private client who's working one-on-one coaching with me, or those in my year-long immersion. And we have 24 families in the program at this time. Okay. So a lot of what stands out to me is that, first of all, there's a good variety here. So I want you all to know that it is not a cookie cutter process. It's not a recipe for creating a child who is motivated and listening to you, right? Although the toolbox is a robust research-backed toolbox that all the tools will probably be used at some point in your parenting journey and in their journey in life. However, which one works right now, which insight fits right now is highly personalized. And that's based on the age of your kid, the temperament of your kid, the sort of the makeup of their sort of motivation map, all things that we take the time to figure out together. And then I teach key concepts for 5 different ways to intrinsically motivate your kids. And then these folks, I say, but don't try to do it all at once. Pull out the things that really stand out to you. So one thing, like this is basically the one that's right here, by Joan. She says, we don't have to have the same motivations for the action we agree on. This is one that I see parents tripping over quite a bit. They're like, well, maybe my kid just needs to understand why this matters, because when I think of why it matters, that motivates me. And we go in and we do this big explanation, and it starts to feel a little lecture-y, I'll just be this, about why this is important, why they should care. And occasionally it works and it really sticks with the kids. A lot of times it doesn't, because it's not quite maybe age appropriate, or it's not quite the tool that, the insight that they need. But if we find another way to motivate them, like, let's find something interesting about this. Let's turn it into a game. Let's break it down into small steps and see how quickly we can do each step. Let's get a friend involved so that there's some peer, kind of connection here. You're not the only one doing this by yourself. Let's do it together. All of those kinds of things could also be helpful besides just knowing why it matters, right? So I love this insight from Joan. We don't have to have the same motivations for the action we agree on. Now, if you're here and you're watching the replay, pop into the chat any of these that stand out to you. It's always interesting to me, or any words or phrases that pop out for you. Another one is, Tony says, don't assume what motivates your partner. Same kind of idea, right? So oftentimes we can be very limited in our thinking about what it's like almost like A plus B equals C, but they might be working with X, Y, Z. And so that maybe it's X plus Y equals C for them. And so whether it's your child or your partner, because we also did a session with our marriage coach, Coach Imani Aisha, she's amazing. She talked a lot about how we really especially make assumptions when it comes to adults, because they're more similar to us in like life experience and age. And so we even make more assumptions like, well, this should motivate you. So that's a good one. So going into it, first thing I would say is be willing to be like to open your mind to the idea that your child most likely a lot of the time will need to be motivated differently than you're motivated. Like maybe you're motivated by the clock, but they're only motivated by like, you know, things feeling comfortable and fun. And you're like, I don't need comfortable and fun to get my morning routine done. I just watch the clock and I know that I have this deadline. But time management and like being motivated by an external force like the time, and maybe a goal you have that's personal to you. Like I like being on time. I don't want to miss something. That might be a little bit higher level than your child is able to kind of put their head around. But if it feels good and it's fun and it's interesting to them and you get to laugh and you're connected, maybe that's more helpful, right? So be open to the idea that your child and you may need different motivation, different sources of motivation to get busy, to get going. Okay. So that's something that stands out to me. And we talked about at length, of course, because that's how they got to these conclusions. So, oh, I keep doing this thing where I'm projecting my reason for being motivated onto my kids and it's not working and it's frustrating me. Like if they would just listen to me, then they would understand. And it's like, it's not quite how it works all the time, right? I mean, eventually, yes, they'll probably, when they're in their, you know, later years, go back and say, I get it now, why you always pushed us to get out on time, because there are real consequences to being late all the time. But when you're 5 and 7 and even 9 and even 12, it's like, it's just not that salient. It's not that compelling. So we need other ways. Okay. Another thing that really stood out to me is being able to like make anything that's coaching, like Saban has here on this yellowish one, it's like kind of light color here. Focus on making coaching fun rather than getting frustrated. So what does that mean? That means, okay, sometimes when we get into the space where we have to stop what we're doing because the kid didn't listen, and we need to tell them, break it down or coach them through it or figure it out, we can get frustrated because our expectation is that mama say, mama do, or mama say, child do, right? Like if I say, then you do. And that to us can feel like the version of respect that we want from our children. And that's a great goal. However, kids are very much in their own world. And so what can we do to get in there? And we talked a lot about connecting before correcting, getting into their world. And so one thing I really saw this mom claim for herself over this weekend was, I'm going to get down to my child's level and really connect with him. And we had a report back just a few days later. And she said, you know, I really did that for days on end, really connected and got in there with him. And I noticed it made a huge difference. I was less frustrated and he listened much more and much better. It's like, right, because what kids need often is a reason to pay attention to you, especially because they're so driven by their own inner desire to explore their environment, to explore their imagination. And it's a really rich tapestry of activity going on at any given time. And if we're going to be relevant, we need to sort of get in there with them and make sure they see and feel and hear us before we tell them what to do. And also we might realize they need to do something else first. Like truly, like it's important that they finish drawing the eyes on their little face they're drawing, because otherwise it's like a one eye thing and it's upsetting to them. Give them that minute, right? You won't know that until you get up close. So getting up close was the first part, but the second part is she wanted to take it further. She didn't want it to just be neutral. She wanted to try and make it fun. And I think that was something that, since she didn't grow up with, was something she really needed some ideas about. And we'd spent a good portion of the weekend sprinkling in ideas of how to make these things fun and motivating. Yeah. Okay. So anybody else have something that stands out to them, put it in the chat. Even if you're watching the replay, just put the word replay and put it in the chat and I will see it. The other one I really like, and I mean, there's some of these that kind of go together that maybe I haven't named, but maybe you've seen it and you've read it and you've thought about it. Encouraging intrinsic motivation is the goal. Avoid adding extrinsic rewards when there's already intrinsic motivation. This is one of the ones that I think especially grandparents can make mistakes on. They'll be like, oh, if you clear the table, I'll give you some candy. Well, problem with that is not the candy really. It's the fact that maybe they hadn't taken the moment to see if the kid would clear the table for another reason besides the reward. it has been shown across several research studies that if a child is already intrinsically motivated, in other words, without any kind of external rewards or consequences hanging over them, they're inspired to do it, right? They're inspired to act and contribute and put in effort and energy and attention. If that's happening intrinsically from within, and you start creating an extrinsic or outside of, an external reason for them to do it, the intrinsic motivation can fade. Oh no, this is where rewards and punishments can really go sideways very quickly. It's not the only way, but it's one of the main ways is that this child already is doing this. So they don't necessarily need your praise or your reward chart or a piece of candy, or to be warned, or to be given a consequence, hang a consequence over them. So the key here is observe before you bring in any kind of extrinsic motivators. Like, is there a way that my child is already motivating themselves? Are they talking themselves through it? Are they breaking it down to steps? Are they asking for help? Are they putting on some music and bopping along to make it more fun? Are they, talking to themselves? I can do this. I've done hard things before. That's kind of the growth mindset. Watch for those signs first before you bring in rewards and punishments, or anything that would be extrinsic. Yeah. Okay. So really pay attention to that one. Anything else that stands out to you, write it in the chat. Okay. Last but not least, whoops, I want to focus on, oh boy, what's happening here? There it is. Okay, these are slides gone wild. Slides gone wild. It's an incredibly sensitive mouse. There we go. We got a little preview of some other things that we did during the retreat. Okay, back to these insights. I'm just gonna bring up one more from this, but you really can keep looking at these. Feel free to pause the video and read through them more thoroughly. But I really like the telling stories to kids about what work might have gone into something that someone did for them. That's Kirsten. So one thing that I found in my research that was wildly surprising until you really think about it is that, and this is kind of like the effect of how emotion coaching your kids leads to better test scores later. Like, it's just like, what? But it's true. It's been proven. And I have a whole other video on that. But how could it be that telling stories about the work that might have gone into something that they now have, or like an experience that they get to have, how there are people in their lives who are doing things, to benefit them, whether it's to help them be more happy or successful, or to have access to resources and opportunities. Why would telling stories about that boost their motivation? Well, that was my whole master's research, was to bring in stories that would inspire kids to feel authentic appreciation and gratitude towards the people who are making their school experience the best that they could. And I told stories of 24 different community members, from board members to parent volunteers to teachers to specialists, and just as many people in the building with that. And a lot of people said yes. So I told them 24 stories of like, oh, did you know that the Spanish teacher went out of his way to also start this gardening project? And on the weekend, he went to 3 separate stores to find, to ask for seed donations. And that's why you have like 100 different options of what you're going to plant this year. Wow. I wonder why I did that. And I would walk through this like story template that I shared at this retreat. And asking kids questions along the way, like, why do you think he did that? What was his intention? Or like, what do you think he was feeling when he was, wanting to do that? What do we know about this person now? What did he give up? Oh, his time and, like his weekends, his free time. He could have been doing something else, but instead he was collecting these seeds. And then at the end, like, what would you like to do to show your appreciation? How do you feel? It's like big love, like kind, I feel warm and fuzzy inside. What would you like to do to share that with this person, this teacher? And then they came up with all kinds of ideas, but especially they would write this little, thank you note and decorate it, and then read it out loud to the person. Well, it increased engagement in the classes. It increased the kids' reported satisfaction with school. It helped them, like I saw them doing a better job with like even their homework and their on-task behavior during work time. Something special, this is one piece of the motivation model we studied, happens when kids really perceive the people around them as benefactors, like people who are there who are really on their side and doing things behind the scenes that you can bring to light with these stories. And Kirsten really liked that because she really has a sense that maybe if her kids felt more connected to the good work being done on their behalf, they would be much more likely to be motivated around those adults and do things like participate in sports, or like when grandparents come, like take time to greet them and ask them how they are. And like we would think of that, oh, they're too shy, or oh, they're kind of rude, or oh, they're not motivated. But really we can get them connected up. And that was one of the strongest tools that I found in my study have a big and lasting effect. So that was a standout for me too. As you can see, though, there's a lot that you can glean from these kinds of experiences. This is just a little peek in, a little slice. We had so many insights that people were filling up journals and notebooks with ideas, and had a lot of great report backs after the retreat about what was working with their kids, like working right away. And then I also had captured some stories of some folks who really wanted us to know like what their experience was like. So I'm going to pop up a couple of videos. I just want you to see, and I'll have some commentary as well at the conclusion of each one. I'll point out what stands out to me, but I would want you to notice like what stands out to you. And if you have a chance to pop it into the chat, that's always lovely. So here's Arlen. Oh, let me see if I can make sure that the sound is sharing properly. 1 second. Oh, let me see if I can make sure that the sound is sharing properly. 1 second. That was a repeat. Okay, here we go.
And hi, my name is Arlen, and I have 2 children. My daughter is 8 and my son is 6, and I attended the Motivation Mastery Weekend. I really hoped to get out of it more concrete ideas on how to motivate my kids to make the everyday life just a little bit more, have a little bit more of ease. And I was also really looking forward to meeting other parents and knowing that I'm not alone. Sometimes it can feel really isolating as a parent. And I for sure got that. It was really incredible meeting everyone, such great ideas. And then also when you're spending so much time on a subject, it really helps it to sink in and really helps it to make a difference in the long run. And so I really found that I'm already implementing things that I learned at this Motivation Mastery Weekend, and it's helped a ton. I'm so grateful that I did it. I highly recommend attending this Motivation Mastery Weekend or signing up with Vanessa. A few reasons. She's incredibly well run, tons of knowledge, and she just has a way of speaking and understanding on a much deeper level, a deeper level than I think I've ever experienced with any other coaches, and especially in regards to parenting. So it just is extremely integrated. And if you're on the fence at all about attending this weekend or signing up, I just say go for it.
All right. So then she also puts a little plug.
I wasn't sure if I have the time for it.
But what it stood out to me, I don't know if it stood out to you too, was how she's like kind of, you can tell that she's in a state of like ready to have the right tools for the job. And how satisfying it was for her to like fill up her toolbox and go ahead and start using them with the kids and seeing a difference. How many of you would like that, right? That's something that stands out to me. I think oftentimes in parenting, and particularly around subjects of motivation, we can get discouraged easily because usually if we're to a place where we're like, I can't motivate my kid, we've had a lot of not listening or doing the opposite of what we said or ignoring. We've had potentially needing to escalate things to get listening. Like I've had people say, I say it 5 times and the 6th time I yell and then they finally do it. And that's something that, folks like Arlen and other folks in the program are like really wanting to get away from and wanting to create more ease and like connection with things that really work and not kind of waste our time on things that don't. So anyway, some things that stood out to me. Let's check out Sharon's share as well.
Hello. I have a 7-year-old son and we live in San Francisco, vibrant city. And I was feeling that.
Oops, let's try that again.
there was no hand manual of this is how you raise my particular kid. And I stumbled upon some wonderful opportunities for training, parent training, and to learn some new parenting techniques and ways to motivate my child. And I was very interested, curious, skeptical. So going into this weekend, I didn't have big expectations, but was certainly hoping that I could come out feeling more confident that there's a few more tools that I have up my sleeves. And I certainly achieved that. I'm very grateful to be able to have the time to spend with this community that's very relatable. Everyone's in the same boat with me, with some children that aren't always the easiest to deal with. So I enjoyed my time. I feel like I have new skills to practice and very grateful for this opportunity.
Lovely. So I wonder what stood out to you again. And I think for me, when I hear same boat as other parents, like same boat with anybody who's also going through something, she said that whose kids may not be the easiest. I think it's also like a misnomer. Like I think a lot of struggles are kept behind closed doors, and they'll say like, "Oh, my kid is so easy," but they forget like the year of really hard potty training or the challenges of getting out the door on time for that first year of kindergarten or what, right? It's like, yeah, like we have selective memory on purpose so that we don't dwell in negative memories and we kind of focus on what's good and what's working, oftentimes. So I also would say there's something here for everybody. And this next person I'm going to share like really helps to bring that home. But I have to say with Sharon that she considered herself a skillful parent and yet still felt like it was more draining and there was more friction than there should have been. So you don't have to be in a parenting crisis to benefit from a community experience with other parents who want to fill their toolboxes. I think that's really important. And I think the myth that we should already know what to do in this role that maybe we've never performed before, right? Raising young children. And especially not this specific child who has their own sauce, sweet and spicy and salty that they bring into the mix. But also we might have grown up with a model that we're not very excited to exactly repeat. And so not only do we not have formal training, but the training or the modeling that we've had is maybe not what we're trying to create. And so a lot of times parents are kind of, they want to like improve upon the past generation, but they don't have a whole lot of experience. And so they're put into even very successful parents who are skillful in a lot of areas of their life and in parenting can hit this sort of spot where, man, why does it have to be this way? Like, why can't I have my own training, my own onboarding, my own manual, my own cohort, my own mentor? Yeah. And so I really appreciated how Sharon interacted with the program and the way that she, was able to acknowledge where she was and always want to move forward from that place powerfully. And would sometimes say things like, "Oh, I don't know how I'm going to remember this," but then like realized over time that as she came to the trainings and like anything you need something new you're learning, you need exposure events, like lots of exposures and opportunities to practice, and then you start to see it really become part of your mode of operation, your MO. So this next parent also kind of normal. I just love the way he talks about this because it's like he sought me out. As soon as he heard that I was doing this work, they sought me out, he and his partner, and I said, "This just makes sense to me." And he's a coach; he coaches in another field, but he hadn't heard of parenting coaching yet. So I just think his perspective is pretty interesting. So here we go. This is Carlos.
Hello, my name is Carlos, and I am married and have 2 children, ages 6 and 8. And I'd like to talk to you about the Motivation Mastery Weekend. I find it very inspiring to be with like-minded people, kind of in a safe place and bringing together all these skills and knowledge. Also in a really fun way, right? You're not just sitting there taking notes and reviewing things and kind of going off checklists. You're actually having interactive moments. You're learning from each other. You're sharing stories, and you're basically really creating the skills you need to be a parent and really focus in on a particular area. In this case, it's motivation, right? Which is super key to how get your kids to do stuff without you simply you must do this. Like we all know that actually doesn't work, right? You have to inspire them and lead through inspiration. So that's what I have taken away from my 2 experiences with this weekend. What I like about the structure that is multi-day, you do commit time over the weekend, but we have these moments where we set intentions at the beginning of the weekend, figure out what we're trying to do for the day. We do fun breakouts where, if you're not in person in this case, you actually can have a one-on-one walking conversation with the parents. You get outside, take a walk, feel the sunshine, but also connect and bond over similar experiences. There's also other moments where, for example, with Amani, who's a relationship coach, you can have time with her and actually pick up really valuable skills for how you communicate with your partner. But that also carries over into how you build a relationship with your own children as well. There's great also frameworks you can take away. For example, there's this iCare model, which we take, and we have it posted up on the wall for us. And so we can refer to that and revisit that so that when you're in the moment, you don't just actually forget about the learning and the training, right? And the great thing about it is it's not just one weekend. You can continue with the people you've met, create bonds, and continue that shared experiences learning along the way. So I highly recommend checking out the immersion weekend and trying it out. It's definitely something that's for everybody. It's not just for people who are maybe having problems. No, it's really for all parents, because we all need that connection of that tribe of parents we all belong to.
Strays is rated R.
There we go. Oh, good on you too. So what stood out to you about Carlos's share? So curious. First of all, he just, I don't know, like has a lot of great, there's a lot of great gems in there. So it's hard to pick one, but I do like, he has said to me in many different contexts and conversations that like we weren't meant to do this outside of a village, like, and I've also done my own research around, like the evolution of humans as a social species, and like, because I'm so interested in social emotional needs and resilience. And it's had like a predictive factor of a lot of wellness, outcomes and just general life satisfaction, even success in life is how many personal connections you have, how close you feel to those connections. And when we look at even like social Darwinism versus like, the idea that the survival of the fittest and it's all about competition and survival, that can predict, like that's what's passed on, and that's why we are by nature a competitive species, or like species are competitive by nature. Yes, and later in his life he was like, when you look at humans, it's actually more the evolution of cooperation that we can link, like coordinated efforts, establishing common goals, differentiating some labor in the sense of like, oh, you're good at this, I'm good at this, why don't we collaborate? Like I'll give you a little of my skill and you give me a little yours, and we cooperate and collaborate. So all the ways that cooperation can kind of show up, even if it's smoothing over a disagreement so that you can coexist peacefully and move forward with the bigger goals of survival. That was actually one of the reasons why modern humans have been so successful. It's not just our intelligence and the ability to problem solve and use tools. It's the ability to band together and meet our needs collectively. So why do I bring this up? Because without that village, there's this pressure that we're supposed to do it all, and we're supposed to do it all on our own. And it's just not fair or natural. I will make a case for that. We were actually meant to be connected, meaningfully, colorfully, with a great diversity, and lend our strengths to the community and to each other. And whether your village currently is only one parent and one child, and the school that your child goes to, or even you might be homeschooling, or if it's already large, I would just be asking, like, where in that space do you have the opportunity to be really honest about your parenting struggles without any shame, embarrassment, or negative comparison, right? Does that space exist for you? Because if it doesn't, it's time to find it for yourself. Now that can be at your child's school. Sometimes there's a really robust parent engagement program, like I mentioned earlier. However, most schools are really focusing on maintaining the environment and cultivating staff, camaraderie and sort of morale and retention, and trying to meet the academic and sometimes social emotional needs of your kids. They're not necessarily looking at what do the parents need from us. I think it's a huge gap out there in such a need. That's part of why I decided to focus on parents in my work primarily. So if you don't have that space where it's like shame-free, you can, without negative comparisons, you can get really real about your struggles, find it for yourself, join a community, come be in one of our programs or our events. We would love to fold you in, because having that container means you get to actually deal with things that matter and be really real about it and get over that sharing piece into the work. But until you can share, until you can be open about what's really going on, it's hard to be in like meaningful connection and community and do meaningful work. So why a 3-day retreat? So like get these folks connected up. That was the point. But also to share an immersive experience, like, folks had mentioned that I shared with you, but also recreate the village. And that's part of what Carlos speaks to that I really appreciated. Let's see, I've got 1 or 2 more. If you have anything that's standing out to you, please, again, just go ahead and put in the comments. I've tagged Arlen, Sharon, and Carlos, so they'll see your comments too, which could be meaningful for them, for them to see, what folks are getting out of their shares. This next person I'm going to bring up, her name's Vanessa Moses, and this was actually her first experience of mentorship in our world, and so that was really meaningful to bring this into her world and have her reflect on what it meant to her.
I just wanted to thank Vanessa, Megan, and all the other parents and caretakers who were a part of the Motivation Mastery retreat. I feel like I have some skills and tools in my toolbox, and I'm really aware that there were some that were really missing and that I want desperately for my kid to have. And I feel really excited about what's going to be possible for, supporting my kid to keep learning and growing, and also super appreciate how much of my own growing is like tied inside of the trainings that Vanessa does generally. And this is a pretty key one. Thank you.
Okay. So we're able to have a moment of just like, do you see the joy? Do you feel the joy in her? It can be so uplifting and empowering to get tools into your hands that you can use. Particularly if you, like I said earlier, like if you're finding yourself repeating and bribing and threatening, or like emulating something that you don't want to, or trying to do the opposite and it's not working, like, gosh, it can be just such a relief to get to this place where you're like, okay, I actually have something new to try that I'm excited to try. And I just loved hearing her excitement in her voice. To me, that was really meaningful. I've got one last one for you. And, and if you can relate to any of this, please say something in the chat, because, these folks are in the community here and they're raising our resilience ecosystem. So, give them some love, maybe like the comment that they're linked in, that I've linked them into. And I'll just make sure Vanessa makes it on here. Okay, there she is. All right, let's go ahead and share this one. This is Christopher, and we'll see what his perspective.
I was reacting a little strongly at times, and that was off-putting to them. And so we really practiced seeing things from their perspective, really empathizing with where they were coming from. And what happened when I did that was I noticed their whole demeanor changed, and they were more willing to work with me and more willing to engage. And it ended up being a more pleasant experience for everybody. Not only that, but I got such a benefit out of hearing what the other parents were going through in terms of having this idea that I wasn't doing it right, or that I was the only one having challenges. It was really nice to hear from other people and to normalize what we're all going through. I think it's a great idea to try these programs, to get to talk with other parents and see what other people are going through. I was concerned that the commitment might be too much, but I really took so much away from it afterward.
Yeah, and I want to speak to this because it's really true that I often end up not engaging in these kinds of things because of the time commitment. Like I literally, like when I poll everybody at the end of the retreat, I'm always like, okay, what did you get out of it? And there's a whole long list. What stood out to you? There's a whole long list. What worries do you still have? And I promise at least a third of them or half of them are, I don't know where I'm going to have the time for this. So here's my last insight I want to share with you. To piggyback off of what Christopher said, and even Sharon said, like she was so grateful she found the time. We make time for things. We do make time for trips. We make time for, maybe studying something that is in an area of our personal interests, like maybe taking a yoga class or, learning a new instrument or something. We will make time for these things. I would say even more so for our kids. We'll sign them up for that class and drive them across town. We'll make time for that. We'll make time for maybe going to 3 grocery stores to make sure we have all of our dietary needs covered for the week. We'll make time for that. We'll make time for screen time for ourselves or maybe a phone call to a friend, right? Or to a family member so that kids can talk to grandparents. We'll make time for that. We'll make time for, fill in the blank. Think of the last 2 weeks, that's something you made time for. So really at the end of the day, it's not that you don't have the time. It's that you're not in the habit or the practice of prioritizing your personal parenting growth. Because who does that? Well, we do. And I think that's part of why getting into spaces where I'm not the only one who is skipping that, saying no thank you to that birthday party this weekend, or watching this video instead of watching celebrity gossip like what was about to come on, or some interview for some movie coming up, right? I'm not the only one doing that. It tells your socially wired nervous system it's okay to be here. Like you're not weird or doing something really dangerous or unsavory or unpleasant. Actually, there's a lot of other people here who are doing this, and they're smiling and they're laughing and they're connecting with you, and you're getting to empathize with them and they empathize with you, and then you're like, oh, this is actually a rich and enjoyable experience that satisfies more than just my curiosity on the subject. And then I have people saying that they leave feeling less stressed, they feel lighter, they feel more relaxed, and they feel more motivated when they leave these retreats and sessions. Now, taking in information does take some work. And so, yes, it's a learning environment, but it's also an inspirational space. And when I find that when I work in group settings, and why I started a year-long program instead of just going ahead and doing a private practice with one-on-one clients, which I could fill my practice with just one-on-ones. And I have some folks who just do one-on-ones, and that works for them. But what I've noticed in the group work is that it's almost like your load is lighter because you're leaning on each other for momentum. So think of a current of a river, and each of the people in the program contributing to that current. And let's say, you kind of swing off track and you're over here and now you're a puddle. Well, you just need to pour your water into the river and it's going to flow again, right? That's what happens over and over and over again. I've had people come and just listen to these sessions and not even participate, and get a ton out of it. And not only content wise, but the motivation of right, it's okay to do this. I'm not the only one. I'm not alone was a huge theme out of the takeaways. And so coming back to this time question, here's what I'm going to say. It's not out of reach to make time for things. You already do it. The most important thing you do is you value this and understand that it doesn't have to be painful or effortful. When I say this, I mean working on your parenting toolbox and skills, your personal growth around parenting. And the second thing is that you don't have to set up practice sessions. There are all these things that you have to make time to practice your piano, because literally you could just sit there and gather dust if you never open it. Parenting, guess what? You're in that lab of life all the time with those children, and you have plenty of opportunities to practice. So I heard a few things that these folks said that I want you to hear too. And also more, I'm going to add more. So this is my last kind of how do you get over this time thing? The practice is already built in. You just need to decide that it's something that you're interested enough to put some attention on it, and then the time will come. So I heard, put up the chart where everyone can see it. Yes, right? Visual prompts in the environment, keep it top of mind. Another thing I would add is if there's something that you want to be really practicing consistently, stack it onto an existing habit, a la James Clear Atomic Habits work. So find you want to build in a check-in every day, do it around the meal that you're most consistent about being together. You want to build in connecting before correcting, pick a transition every day where you stop what you're doing, connect with your kid before you ask them to transition. You want to, break things into smaller steps. Pick a time, maybe after dinner, but before we're getting ready for bed, to do a little timeout for training where you do a little practice session in this the skill that you want your kid to be working on. Put it somewhere in the routine where it's consistent. It's just always there. And and I would start with 30 seconds to 5 minutes. Don't go big, because you won't sustain that, and it will feel, you might do the thing where you go, oh my gosh, see, I don't have time for that. I never find time for it. And then it's like a self-fulfilling story. Don't do that, please. Just like you can sprinkle in stretching and exercise and yoga and snacks and, brain breaks or social media breaks or whatever in small increments, you can do that with parenting work, 100%. It's so worth it. So available to you. And that stacks up. What I hear people saying is when they adopt this perspective, 2 to 3 months later, they're having breakthroughs. I see it over and over and over again. Bad habits are dying, new habits are forming, new perspectives are taking over, and their kids are shifting their behavior in response. And then when the kids shift their behavior, so much opens up. So there's a promise in here, I hope you hear it, that if you have the right attitude, the right mindset, and the right tool in your, like the right orientation to the work, the right expectations, and the right tool in your hand, anything is possible in parenting. Now, there's no guarantee for how long it's going to take to find the tool that fits the best, or whether it's going to, like, this is the only tool you'll ever need, probably not. But what I can tell you is that being on this path is a path of growth, not just for your kids, but for you too. And no matter what, you're going to make discoveries along the way. You have to. If you're in the inquiry and you're noticing and you're observing and you're trying things, it's just human nature to gather information and learn. And you're going to learn to have insights about your kids, insights about yourself, and you can build on those for all the years to come, no matter what. So stay in it. Know that you're not alone in it. These lovely folks were able to display for you and give evidence of, and just know that I'm here for you. My team is here for you. There are other folks like me out there, but I would say get in where you fit in and go for it. Don't delay. And I'm going to say one more time that if you have not yet had your complimentary parenting success strategy session, those are available. I just opened some times on my calendar. And new information that you maybe not have noticed is that we are in the final days of enrollment for this cohort. We'll have to wait until January to start again, although you can get on like the wait list and kind of get started on some things before then. But for the true cohort start is July and January. And even though we're in August, our doors are still open for the July cohort until the 15th. So if you or someone in your life you think would resonate with the folks that you heard from, would possibly benefit from exploring being a part of an organized, really uplifting program that moves you forward in your parenting, we should talk soon. Get on my calendar, don't delay. I would love to see you pop on it. Even if we've spoken in the past, go ahead and sign up so that we can, and we'll just talk straight away about the program then, since you've already been oriented to the work and had some time with me already coaching. I just had 2 families join last week, super excited to get started. We have right now, I think it's like 23, 24 families, and we have capacity for a few more. So please do lean in and dive in if it's right for you. I will hold your hand through the process of deciding. No pressure either way, but please don't let this resource be a secret. Okay, pass it on. All right, lots of love to each and every one of you. This is a longer form one, not quite your 15 minutes, but I feel like there are probably 3 or 4 15-minute chunks in there that were really valuable, or 2 or 3 15-minute chunks in there that are really valuable and will align with each of you. So enjoy. And until next time, lots of love, and may you be a calm and empowered parent, raising confident, happy, and resilient children. We've got you, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.